All right, hello and welcome to the Postgrad Year, where we talk about the Commonplace book, Commonplace Binder, but not exactly anymore. We talk about the Commonplace Diploma. So, what is a Commonplace Diploma? Well, it's part of a new education system. So this is a theoretical education system that I came up with. So I have been working on it for a very long time in terms of just writing about it. That was 2015, okay? So if that's the point where I was writing about it, I've been thinking about it for a very long time. Commonplace Binder. So it is based on the Commonplace Binder. Let's just pick that up again. This thing, a Commonplace Binder, if you don't remember the playlist from last year where I talked for literally 25 hours about this, but a Commonplace Binder is basically a commonplace book, but in a binder. That's it. So it's just a commonplace book, and I wanted my own special search term. Layering levels. So we are going to add the Commonplace Binder to the school by just saying, hey, you can have 1 sheet of paper this year, 2 sheets of paper the next year, 3 sheets of paper the year after that. And so this is basically just like a cheat sheet that someone can use if you want to, use the most reductive language possible. So we're going to layer levels on top of each other. So in addition to having a Commonplace Binder, basically a set of notes that students can carry with them at all times, even during their tests and quizzes and homework and all that other stuff, we are going to be layering levels on top of each other. So what does this mean? Okay, so not every type of education is the type of education you want your kid to have or your neighbor to have, and it's not necessarily advantageous to make every person someone who goes into that form of education. Like, for example, not every single person is meant for college. Not every single person is really, meant to dream of labor. But we do kind of need to have some people who are going to college, or some people that are going into the workforce or the military, or, whatever other path they choose in life. And so what this does is it basically creates a system, and then it creates another system on top, and then another one on top of that, and on top of that, and it just keeps going up. And so what we do is we create one specific way of existing, and then another way of existing, and then another way of existing, but we don't remove the bottom rungs unless all of the people are allocated to higher rungs on the ladder. A single goal cohort. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating groups of students that all agree with each other on why they're there. And they all agree with the parents and the staff on why they are in school. So is school made for the state to get more soldiers? Well, if you're in the military level, you probably agree with that. And your parents probably agree with that. And the teachers probably agree with that. But not everyone is going to go into that level. College prep, that is the first one. So because the system right now is based on everyone going to school and then going to school for longer, it makes sense for the system to eventually push everyone into more school. Because, people go to school to become people who go to school longer, to become people who go back to school and tell other people to stay in school. So it's a system that just kind of perpetuates itself. And so we do need a little bit of that to keep happening. But we probably don't need that for every single student. That would be ridiculous. And so up next, we have vocational education. Assuming we have jobs, or assuming we have vocations, people are going to need to do those, right? And so if someone is like 10 years old and they're just like, I don't want to be in school, I want to get a job. I might ask them who gave them that idea, but it might just be they know that's where they're going, so they just want to get there faster. They're like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this nonsense. I just want to do the thing I know I'm going to end up doing. I want to know what I'm getting myself into. I want to have a little bit of leeway, and I want to know the people ahead of time, because if I know the people up front, it might be they can help me get the better opportunities, right? Might not work like that, but for people with that sort of mentality, when they are in school, they're, just sitting in an earth science class, and they're like, man, do I need to, get out of here? So it's not really helping the school. It's not really helping the student. It's just kind of a waste for the administration. And so it's a lot easier to just move some people over there. Not everybody, And we're not going to do the thing that the Germans do, where they're like, okay, you're 5, congratulations, we've decided your life for the next 50 years. We're not doing that. What we're simply saying is, because we are layering levels, and we're starting with the 5th year of high school, we have 4 years of high school, and then we're adding a 5th one. For that final 5th year, you can choose to prepare yourself for college, or maybe you want to go into vocational education. And so if you decide on a college, that's great. You can just do that. You don't need to do this extra 5th year of high school. But maybe you haven't chosen the college, or maybe your grades aren't that good, or maybe there's something else going on, like you're 17 and you want to be an adult when you go to college. I don't know. But of course, we also have vocational education, where some people just want to start the job early, but they also don't really want to leave school, or their parents are keeping them there, or whatever else is going on. Then we have magnet schools. Magnet schools are like college prep and vocational education at the same time, but also neither. So you might go to a school for something like medicine or law, which is basically, something you're going to find at a college. Or maybe it's something like carpentry or plumbing. And it's like, wait a second, why are you going to the magnet school if it's basically the vocational education? But the magnet school could be about anything. Maybe there's just one about science, right? Military Corps. All right. So we've talked about college and the workforce and doing something halfway in between. But then there's also the military. And so even if this is only 1% of the students, we do kind of need to help them not get eaten up by the giant military industrial complex. And so they will be part of it, but we do want to let them know what they're getting into, and we want to make sure that they're actually, physically fit and they don't hurt themselves trying to get in. And so all that's going to do is it's going to use the Commonplace Binder for, whichever specific level that they're in, and the students are going to pass on their notes to the next student. So just like in this tree of knowledge at the top, where we have some things that don't work out, there are going to be some students that don't work out at the school. And so we are not going to pass on their binders because obviously what they were doing wasn't working. But there are going to be some students who pass, and they pass very well. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to double the material. And so instead of one student passing on one book to one person, or one person passing on to 0, we're going to have one person pass on to 2. So they'll keep a copy of their notes, and then 2 new students will also get their notes. And so if this is for something like the military, it might be like, hey man, you know what you got to do? You got to stretch. And it's just going to give people all the really baseline level skills, because we're not talking about someone who's, all the way in West Point or something, right? Like, if they're in their 5th year of high school and they haven't decided on college, or they haven't decided on vocational education, or if they don't know what they're doing and they still haven't really committed to anything, this gives them the way to commit to it without actually committing to it. So for example, if you say you're going to go to a specific college and you don't get in, well, that sucks. But if you say you want to go to college and that's all you know, well then congrats. You hang out with the other people who are going into college. Just like this one is, you hang out with the people who are going into the workforce, right? So you might not know exactly what you want, but the other people will lead you in the right direction. Like this military corps isn't prepping everyone for the army or, something random like the Space Force. This is just saying, maybe I want to consider a military path afterwards. I specifically have been told by my family I should not do that and I would not be allowed in. But, there are some people who are a lot younger than me that are thinking about that. All right, this one is very complicated. This is going to be the only math that I've talked about so far on the channel in terms of an actual note card, so this is kind of exciting. 10K students times 50 years equals 500,000 graduates. So, yeah, you have the 5 times the 1, and then you get 5, and then you got 2 zeros. So that would be 5, 0, 0. And then there's a K. So, yeah, 500,000 graduates. Now, if you have a military corps, some of these people are probably going to die, right? If they go into the military, they are more likely to choose the military or personal security or become a private contractor that goes off to another country. And then things can get a little exciting after that. But assuming that nobody dies, and assuming we have 100 locations with 100 students in each place, that is 10,000 students per year. And so if this is only a 1-year program, what you're going to do after 50 years is you're going to create 500,000 graduates. So that's actually kind of insane. So if you have the military corps, for example, that is a pretty solid reserve force in terms of people who have only had 1 year of training. And so if the 1 year of training is just, they go to school, but 2 hours of their day every day are focused on military matters, they will probably have a basic understanding of geography. Their physical fitness will be, average, or maybe a little bit above that. They're probably going to know what a gun looks like, right? Like, they're just going to know all the basics, and that's going to be really, really useful. But now we're moving down here. 50% Get Diploma. So whenever we set up a new education system, we have to ask ourselves, are there going to be grades? And I assume that there will be grades. There might also be a random level that doesn't have grades. But regardless, every single level is going to have a system in which there is a Commonplace Diploma at the end, and the diploma only goes to 50% of graduates. So this means even if you're training 500,000 soldiers, half of them are considered to be a higher quality level. And so they're going to have the special diploma. But I was talking about these terms sometimes passing on or sometimes not passing on. 1/3 fail, 1/3 pass on to one person, and then 1/3 pass on to two people. So we'll have this system where half the people get the special diploma, but we'll also have a second system in which 1/3 of the people do great, 1/3 of the people do okay, and then 1/3 of the people do poorly. Slow rollout. So I'm talking about, hundreds of thousands of students. And that's in 50 years. So this is kind of a long time. And so what we're doing is we're rolling this out very slowly. So this is only going to be one student at first. And, it's going to take a while. Memory-based education. All right. So the reason why we're using this Commonplace Binder, even in something like the military, is the people don't necessarily use their memories a lot anymore. And so if we're not really using our memories, we have to focus a little bit more on something down here. All right, so for memory-based education, basically the point is we have people learn things and memorize them, and that's it. They don't think about their stuff, they just memorize it. 1 page per year. So this is me just mentioning again, we're going to add 1 page to the Commonplace Binder per year. And as a bonus, for example, if this thing has existed for 100 years and you're adding 1 extra page and it's your first year in the program, you will also get to edit 1 existing page. So technically you get to add 2 pages, but you have to delete one of the old ones. Outline of information. So just like this gives me a general idea of what I'm going to be working on. It might be that the binder doesn't solve all the problems for the person. They might be like, I don't know where this thing is. I don't know how I'm supposed to look this other stuff up. And so some binders will be better for people than others. And, not every binder will match every person. So we might have to do some sort of personality test to match these. I'm not sure exactly how that would go. Search-based education. So just like how we have some people focusing on their memory, we also have some people who don't really know anything anymore and they just use the internet. And while I do appreciate the people who just use the internet when it comes to watching my videos, because, I do need some people to watch, it is also kind of inconvenient to have the search-based education. But we can't really go without the memory, and we can't really go without the search. So it might be that we have one level specifically for people maxing out their memory, and another level for people maxing out their ability to search. But some people also use AI now, right? So, what's going to happen? We're going to reduce our school notes. That's what's going to happen. So if you have this binder that you can carry with you at all times, and it has a specific amount of space, it might be you look at your old school notes from last year or the year before, and you're like, wait a second. Hold on. I don't need those notes anymore. At least I don't need most of them. So what I can do is I can just put them in the binder, and I can bring them to school. I don't need to solve this problem because I solved it last year. 5th year of high school. As a reminder, this new education system is just adding a 5th year of high school, at least at first, right? So we're going to add these extra levels, and we're going to have 1, and then the next, and the next, and it's going to slowly soak up all the people who just graduated high school over the course of, decades, if not centuries. And then after that point, we are going to slowly consume the rest of the education system. And as we do this, we're of course going to be adding additional levels afterwards, because, you know, it's not like these are the only 4 things that people will ever do after school, right? Promotion, not demotion. So even if it's a great idea to send some students to college, it's probably going to get altered over time. And that's part of the reason why I mentioned the 50% Get Diploma, because we will experience grade inflation. And so that is true for the college level, that's true for vocational education, for magnet schools, for military corps, like that is for everything, right? And so it's far better to create the additional levels on top than it is to just randomly harass the people at the bottom. Right to bear knowledge. So with the military corps and the right to bear knowledge, I'm really talking about a lot of gun-related things. But this conceptually is just, look, if you're allowed to carry a sidearm, why are you not allowed to carry an intellectual sidearm, right? Like, we only do violence? Like, we have our brains, but we don't have the binder. That's kind of messed up. Untethered to inflation. So because these levels are going to get stacked on top of each other, we can have each level be worth a specific amount of money. Say, you know, this is $10,000, like additional dollars allocated to each student. I'm going to break that down in probably the next video. But say it's $10,000 and then that one's $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. That sounds extremely expensive right now, right? Just like this one, you know, it seems like a lot of money, but it's kind of manageable. In 100 years though, based on whatever type of inflation we have, that might be basically some kid's allowance. And so as we add these levels, or we're just making sure that each one is a little bit more expensive than the one before, and we're pushing everyone into the higher levels, we're getting rid of the things that just probably have experienced great inflation, that don't really work as well as they used to, and we can come up with more specific things afterwards. Like maybe instead of a college prep thing, it's a university prep, right? Because it might be that the people who are going to the college prep, sometimes they just want to go to, like, you know, a trade school, and they just didn't realize that that extra option was there. And maybe for like the military level, for example, you don't want to send people into the military, you want to break it up by like Army, Navy, Marines, or whatever. For magnet schools, this one's pretty obvious. If you focus one school on carpentry and then there are no more trees, you know, clearly that's not going to work out. And so you could create another level of magnet schools where it's just magnet schools again, but it's a little different because it's a new level. And so it would have a different amount of money, and you know, things would be different. Like the students who go into that one versus the students who go into the original one. Like if you have 2 levels for magnet schools and one is 30,000 and the other one's 40,000, most students are going to aim for the 40,000 one, right? But yeah, I think that's it for Untethered to Inflation. So up next is what's included. And, you know, it's obvious about the Commonplace Diploma. Anyways, I have eaten up a lot of time today, so thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. All right, bye.